All right, everybody. We made it back. We're here. But thank you guys for everyone that is going to be watching for today, as well on the replay that will be on YouTube. If you aren't familiar with this podcast, it is called Money Talks, Love Listens. And the premise of the podcast is we talk about relationships, love, sex, money. Hopefully you're building some wealth. Hopefully you're saving during this, if you're in the United States, very hectic time right now. I know we all thought 2021 would be amazing. I just restarted that. Like, we just restart the calendar. So we are on day 2 because whatever happened before doesn't count. So, but we are still here, and hopefully you are safe and healthy. And today we have a really special topic. I think this is a topic a lot of us can relate to, especially women. You know, a lot of us are probably feeling some Zoom fatigue, Facebook Live fatigue, or any live stream fatigue at all. I know I was definitely feeling that a little bit ago. But today's topic is on women's burnout and kind of fighting that burnout, whether that relates to your relationship, intimacy, money, work, just day-to-day life, as you know, they say. Everything is interconnected, so don't think that, you know, one thing is not. But our guest of honor today is Victoria. So before I introduce Victoria, I want to welcome back my co-host, Jim, our finance expert. And Jim, if you could share just a little bit quickly, if people have not tuned in, a little bit about yourself and what you do.
All right, well, thank you. Well, welcome to 2021. It's been an interesting journey here from last year to this year. So I'm a vice president of a private wealth management firm located in the western suburbs of Chicago. Our name is THG Financial Group, and we specialize in comprehensive financial planning for individuals, families, and small to mid-sized business owners. We work in all comprehensive planning, from investments to insurance to executive planning. And my role is to, help give individuals and the business owners themselves a good experience where they are educated on what's out there, and, they understand what's going on, and they implement strategies that help them.
Awesome. So again, if any of you guys are entrepreneurs, you're a business owner through this very unusual time, I'm going to say that. Using new words this year, so we're going to go with unusual time. Make sure to reach out to Jim for any financial news. But our guest of honor is Victoria. Victoria is, I'm just going to call you the sex goddess. I don't know if I can call you that, but that's what I'm going to call you for the remainder of this interview. So, Goddess Victoria, please, I want to hear more about your story and, what you do and how you help women kind of tune into their sexual power and sexual healing, and everything else that you do. That's amazing.
Oh, thank you so much, Gwen and Jim. Thank you for having me. And hi, everybody. I know it can be so tough with COVID and everything that has been happening, but believe me, there is a turnaround. There are possibilities that we can explore now, especially when it comes to divine sexuality. So, as a businesswoman, I understand what it is to be close to burnout. And especially now, as Gwen was saying, with this Zoom fatigue and just feeling like we don't have enough time for ourselves. Like, it's almost like if there is a window in our home. Like, I'm most of the day with Zoom, and it's like there is always somebody looking in my home, right? More important than ever to have your own sanctuary for connecting with your intimacy, your self-care, your sexuality, and have those daily rituals. So we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But before, how I started in this, well, so it was super interesting because I grew up in Spain in an ultra-conservative regime where sex was just for procreation. So that means that these ideas of tantra or enjoying sexuality for self-actualization, all of that, it was like, no. All of that is almost like a sin. So through being a little bit rebellious myself, I started just living my life, but I was quite on the tomboy side because being a woman was a little bit like second class, like
Yeah.
I wasn't happy about that. So I went more into the overachieving women kind of personality, learning from men how they do it. So I finally disconnected so much from my own femininity. And that's what I realized, that as women, sometimes we disconnect from our femininity, we start getting depleted, especially business women that need to be competitive in the workplace or have their own business. All of this makes us really forget about living in the present moment, honor our bodies, our sexuality, and we start just being all day living in our minds, and it becomes really exhausting. So I teach techniques and I guide courses so that women can really reconnect with the pleasures of life and what I call the ecstatic experience.
I love it. Spain is one of my favorite countries, so it's very,
Oh.
very beautiful. I loved visiting there, and hopefully, when this is over, I can come back. Like, please, let me in. But I think it's very interesting. You brought up something, even from a cultural standpoint. Like, America is kind of seen as a very prudish, almost a lot of things are taboo.
Mm.
That's how the podcast came about, where you're not really supposed to talk about sex, you're not supposed to talk about money. Yet we're all doing those things.
Right?
We're trying to get one of those things. I don't know. Yeah, nobody wants to talk about it. It's like somebody will just figure it out, and no one really just figures it out on their own. I would say so. It's interesting to kind of hear someone else's perspective, from a different country, versus America. How even in that sense, I think we're the same in terms of conservatism around those topics.
Well, it's changed. So
Yeah.
what happened is that, excuse me, we have right now, we had a dictator in the past. So that's what made for the censorship and the ultra conservative. But then the dictator died and we went to the other extreme. So
Yeah.
Spain started being like really, really liberal all over the top. So now it's different there. So I do notice that here we are more conservative.
Yeah, definitely than Europe. I was like, Europe's where you go have fun. Like, don't really have fun in America. More ways than one. But I think, a lot of times, especially with women, as we get older, the burnout obviously increases, whether it's about our relationships or sexuality, or even just kind of chasing the American dream, or, building your brand and business. It almost feels like, too, at some point, America has a thing where they kind of, after a certain age, women are kind of thrown away, or not seen as valuable. So a lot of that, I feel, has to do with women kind of feeling ashamed of getting older, which is kind of weird because it's not like you can stop the aging process. Like, there's no alternative to this. So how would you address women that are feeling kind of ashamed of their sexuality because they are getting older, and they really don't know how to deal with kind of that shame?
Yes, that's a big issue because as a culture, we tend to glorify women that are a certain stereotype. So in their 20s, they are normally skinny, so we have these stereotypes that is impossible to live by because nobody's going to stay like that forever, right? So we don't realize about the beauty and the richness that we can bring by having all these different ages and shapes and kinds of almost like flavors of women. So when I guide courses, I remember once I had this group and they were mostly in their 30s, 20s, 30s, but I had some women that were older, even some came with their mothers. And it was so breathtaking because they brought such a unique energy to the circle that was so precious. They held that wisdom that comes only with the years. And they started recognizing their own value beyond the stereotypes. They started, instead to feel almost like they were less than, they were started feeling almost like the goddesses, like, okay, I can hold this space that none of the youngest one can. So I feel that part of the process of healing that perspective was for me to share with them different things that they can do to be at their optimal place when it comes to sexuality. So we don't have the knowledge of how our bodies work sometimes. So as things start changing down there, especially, or even in the whole body, we start feeling uncomfortable. We don't know how to deal with it.
I was having so much fun with this one.
I have so many questions.
Women are goddesses. That's all you need to know. Okay.
That's
Now
fair.
let's go there. No, but it's seriously, it's a good thing for you to be here, Jim, because it's good to know these things. It's good. These things should not be censored. These things should be common knowledge so that we can be precautious, to be able to not fall into, oh well, when I'm older I cannot have sex anymore. No, it's not like that. We just need to understand how our bodies work. In the same that we take care of our muscles, we can take care of other places, and we can make our body continue to work to the best of our ability instead to just let it to fall.
Yeah, I love that. So you bring up a good point about kind of taking care of yourself. And have you noticed that, I feel like there are more women in power. We are in America on the cusp of having the first female vice president, first female VP of color, in, one of the most powerful positions in the world, very shortly in another week. How have you seen women as they've gotten older kind of step into their power, or what are some things that women can do to kind of step into that powerful feeling, even if it comes into business, which obviously that's kind of my segue into Jim. But how would you help a woman kind of find her power if she's over 40?
Yes, so there is something beautiful happening. And this is that over generation after generation after generation, we are building almost like role models that we can follow. Before, we didn't have these role models that we can look up to. So now the more we have, the more we can feel empowered, and the more we can say, I have this possibility that before was impossible, but now we can do it. And as we tap into our 40s and even 50s, we are able to see, I have the wisdom that I didn't have before. So some of that confidence actually comes because of being of a more mature age. And I see this all the time, that women that were more shy or didn't have the confidence and the courage of standing up for themselves, as they become a little bit older, it's like what they have to lose. It's like they feel more confident, and they're seeing that they are being more accepted, not like before. So it's almost like it's building this momentum. So it's not like before. If there was one woman that would stand up and try to get a position of power, people would fight against her. But now it's not like that. People is going to support it. So because of this, it's like we feel it's easier and easier.
Yeah.
So,
Jim. I guess I'm trying to, connect the two, because I feel a lot of people are probably wondering, how are these two things kind of interconnected? And my segue is, honestly, I'm sure a lot of women know this already, but Sex and the City has been re-announced, or it's coming back, which is interesting because I think most of the characters are probably in their 50s. And it's going to be interesting to see a group of women who probably at this point are at the pinnacle of their career. So how would a woman kind of address maybe some of the financial goals she has as she's getting older?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. But before we get into that, I have some thoughts and some feedback that I would like to share. Well, first of all, this is a great experience for me, because for a couple of reasons. I like hearing from a perspective of women on how they feel as they age and whatnot, because I hear it from men and I experience it myself. I don't think that, my sexuality and whatnot is depleting, but it's interesting to me that as we get older, things change. And the idea of what's the norm when when you're a teenager and in your 20s and 30s is not the same anymore, but it's very different. The second thing that actually I got to say, I loved what you said. When you have your presentations and you have different women that are there at different age brackets, that you have more flavor, more things that are going on. So I've been doing this now for 20 years. And, from my first day to now, things have changed significantly, where I meet with so many more women, so many more people of color, so many more different demographics that are business owners or that took control over their finances. And it's so awesome to be a part of because it's different. It more flavors. I love that. That's very, very exciting. That's very exciting. So what I would love to talk about was, in your teachings, you mentioned that you met with over 4,000, I do believe, women in your history. I would love to learn more, get some feedback on what they shared with you about taking control of themselves, whether it's personally, professionally, or even financially.
Yeah, so my work is foundational in the sense that I share with my clients how they can accomplish greater awareness and understand what are the things that sometimes are patterns that are repeating and repeating, and they don't even realize why they are suffering. So identifying that, being self-aware, instead to have just triggers that take them everywhere. And when that happens, of the triggers taking somebody everywhere, all that energy that they have is scattered. So it's super important to start understanding what are the triggers that we have. And when I talk about these 4,000 people, it's actually in different aspects of the healing arts. So I train practitioners, I train teachers in different modalities of healing. So every single time that somebody comes to my classes is going to be about gaining self-awareness and empowerment to be closer to the life they want to live. So because of that, it's almost like receiving the tools to create more wealth, more happiness, more self-actualization in any aspect of their lives by freeing some of that sometimes mental fog that sometimes life is almost like happening to them. But then they start understanding, oh, wow, I had this trauma, or I had this thing that I'm reacting to. And now I'm aware, so I can elevate myself beyond that, if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, that's excellent feedback. When I go through my interview process with new clientele, one of the things that we do, and what I always recommend, is I want to learn more about what's most important. I want to help articulate what your goals are. And, then I want to implement strategies that make sense, but what will help you achieve what's most important. So when you mention that, you're trying to unleash what's driving them down, it's interesting to me that, some of the people I talk to are afraid to share what their goals are, or their goals are so small, they're afraid to think big. So that's interesting. That's good feedback. That's good feedback.
Now that you mentioned that, one of the things that I observe is that sometimes as women, if we have had any problem with our sexuality, like an abuse in our sexuality, or maybe lack of intimacy because our parents didn't treat us in a certain way, and we have a wound with the mother figure or father figure, sometimes we numb that by becoming workaholics. So we start working because we know that whatever we put in the business normally is going to pay off. Whereas relationships for us can be almost like this thing that we don't know how to treat or deal with. So then becoming aware of that and understanding those processes helps so that we can resolve it and we stop being completely close to burnout and depleted. And understand we need to redirect some of this energy so that we can heal those wounds and actually have good relationships and a support structure in our lives.
Right. What's interesting is if you kind of spin that to where the interviews that I have, burnout's the right word, but it's also confusion because of there's so much information out there that when I meet with people, the hardest part is to get people to understand what their plan is. So once they understand what their plan is, implementing it's actually much easier. So that's interesting feedback. I mean, I don't know if there was trauma with their financial side, but I know that a lot of people that I talk to, what they've learned was not necessarily appropriate from different generations, where it may not be the most financially secure or the best plan for them. And when you deal with professionals in any walks of life, you have to make sure you educate them appropriately.
That makes sense. And our own self-value, how we feel, if we feel that we are valuable enough, if our parents treated us as such, that is going to be also a determinant factor as to how much we think we can generate. So one of the processes that I do with some of my clients and students is to go through those limiting beliefs that we might have inherited from our past generation or learn from our time with our parents. And once they realize, oh, wow, this is my self-worth that I'm thinking I have. And now after I expand it, I'm able to achieve greater levels in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, so what do you recommend to women to take control of their sexuality, their love life, their finances, or just their life in general? What do you recommend?
Yes. So what I call the ecstatic experience is the idea that there is a place that we can have within ourselves that can be almost underlying any other thing that we do. So instead to be in business or achieving something always from our mind, like getting stressed, instead of that, how does it feel to tap into just feeling ecstatic? Whatever you need to do. Like, for example, when we start thinking about, oh, I want to create this business, normally we start with the excitement and we're like, oh my goodness, I'm dreaming about it all day. And then we get into it and we put that away. And then there is like, oh no, worries, stress. So we need to bring that passion back. So having that passion as the underlying force that fuels every single thing in our lives, that is the ecstatic experience, to make sure that always that is nurturing everything that we are doing, because otherwise it becomes like a burden almost, because we are trying to move it forward from our mental place instead to really bring all that passion that we can tap into.
I mean, passion is critical no matter what you do. So that's well said. Well said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Victoria, I'm just like taking some of the stuff that you've said in. So I feel a lot of it generates kind of even more today as I'm getting older. I'm not going to say my age.
We're all 15 here. We're all 15. Maybe Jim 16, but
yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit older than that. But I definitely see how I've become a little bit more, I don't know, forceful. I mean, maybe some people might call it blunt, but as I've gotten older, so that's kind of my last question. Have you seen women kind of, as they get older, I kind of learned this from my mother, where she was like, just wait until you turn 30 and then you turn 40 and you turn 50, like, this is what it's going to feel like. And you're going to just be like, I don't care about anybody. Like, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. And I'm like, okay, sure it is. And I turned 30 and something happened where I felt like, oh, okay, I feel like I can say what I feel like and don't have to kind of, have input from other people. Now I'm in my mid 30s, so on to my late 30s. And it's definitely different than when I turned 30. So have you seen with a lot of the women you worked, where as we kind of hit those milestone years, have they become a little bit more set in their power or just more outspoken in what they want?
So I see a lot women becoming set on their power with age. So I do see that. Another thing is that sometimes we forget a little bit the inner girl. We forget a little bit to have fun, to just be frolicking throughout the day. Like we need to bring some of that spontaneity. And the idea is almost like we add almost like these Russian dolls that have one inside of the other. So if we can keep each of those stages, it's almost like we enrich ourselves with all the different layers instead to discard the inner girl and now I'm an adult. Because then we're missing out all that energy, spontaneity, creativity, sexuality. So we need to keep all of those and bring them with us so that we step on our power, but at the same time, we still are able to be playful. So that's the only thing I would recommend. And I feel that we have the limiting belief because we have heard, oh, when you turn this, you'll see.
Yeah.
So we like program, okay, well, I'm waiting when this happens. When this happens, I'm going to notice it because they told me. So I recommend, when somebody tells me something like that, that is limiting or I don't want, I like, well, that's your experience, but mine can be different.
Right. No, I think it's important. I think a lot of us do forget to have fun and to be playful at any age. It's not just about being in your 20s. Sorry if you're watching this in your 20s and you're like, what are you guys talking about?
You actually look very, very playful still. So I think you're doing really good. Like I see you and you're like, and with your thing on the hair and you still look
I'm in a pink room, so like obviously.
right.
And I made it pink like for a reason.
So you're doing really good. But there is people that would feel because they want to step in their power, they might think they need to leave the little girl behind.
Right.
And then just be super serious. And that is not attractive sometimes.
Yeah. No, it's kind of boring. Nobody likes that. So freaking boring.
Not magnetic either.
But no, this has been so much fun. And I kind of want to know what you have coming up. I know I've seen a lot of your live streams and Zooms, as well as I know you have a few workshops. So please let everyone know. I see some likes. Sorry, I know people have been watching and have enjoyed a lot of what you've had to say. So please let everyone know, what you have coming up next and how they can reach out to you.
Yes, so we have a few things. The best is to go to victoriavives.com/divine so that you can download my ebook for free. Let me show you.
Oh, she's ready.
So you can download this book for free. So it will give you a lot of good information. And then also, excuse me, I have a YouTube channel. I have my courses as well. But once you enter here, you can just explore the rest. So it's victoriavives.com/divine. And that is victoriavives.com/divine.
I love that cover too. It's very sexy. I was like, ooh. Oh, that's nice. But thank you, Victoria, so much for being here. Jim, do you have any closing thoughts?
I mean, I got to say that this was great. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for your opinions. I loved it. I learned a lot from this. I appreciate that. The only business thing I'll say is now we're in the new year. Make sure everyone starts their plans. And if you don't have an advisor, find one because he or she will be able to help you navigate your financial roadmap. That's it.
Wonderful. So you guys heard it. If you are, which you should be thinking about your finances right now. We are in January, first month of the new year. Something that you can plan for. You can't plan for anything else that's going on in the world. And as always, I like to end everything on a positive note. So please be kind to each other. I think after everything that has happened recently, I think it should be taken a little bit more seriously. And, I hope everything goes well for the inauguration next week. And, just be kind to each other. I say that all the time, but for those of you that are watching, just do one nice thing for your neighbor or someone that you don't know. And well, put a smile on someone's face. You don't know what they're going through. But thank you so much, Victoria, for joining us. And
thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And obviously, thank my co-host, Jim. We will be back next time for Money Talks, Love Listens. Thank you, guys. See you next time. Bye.